Okay, so I actually, when I was looking through this and reading through this, I enjoyed the book a lot, but I didn't
Good.
realize when you were setting up the interview that you were the owner and publisher, right, of Rosarium Publishing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Why did you choose Lion Man and not like do like an expansion of all Negro comics, like do a number two? Why did you choose Lion Man specifically?
Well, John, sorry, John Jennings and David Brame worked on like one of the stories. Excuse me. They worked with Michael Dando. He's a professor at St. Cloud State University. So they did like I can't remember which one of the stories, or maybe a couple of them were already like a comic that they wanted to do for a literacy program.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already like a single issue of this iteration floating out there in the ether somewhere. So John, John and I have been together like even before the company started. So since like we've been friends since 2012. So we just do stuff together. So he was just like, hey, do you want to like expand Lion Man? And my big thing as a publisher, I'm like, well, it needs a spine.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so it's deep existential questions, like does it have a spine or not. So that was pretty much how that started. Yeah, that was pretty much how it started. Like it wasn't for me, it wasn't like I knew all Negro comics existed. I probably would have been a bit more gung ho or knowledgeable about it if I'd known that it had been published in Pittsburgh first, because that's my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was basically how it started, and it took me a minute intellectually to get into the whole idea of playing around with public domain characters. But I'm a history nerd, so then yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with that.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit more? Like when you say, does that have a spine? I'm thinking literally, but obviously you mean more figuratively or both. What can you
No, I
explain that?
meant physically. Like it
Physically,
has to at least be like 80 some odd pages. That way, when
yeah.
it's in a bookstore, well, because like most likely, if you actually are in a bookstore, all people are going to see is the spine.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
So
sense. All
yeah,
right.
so a book has
Okay.
to have a spine.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to dive into the specific story that you wrote with Yvette and David drew, the plague storyline. I noticed some. I guess I noticed some parallels between our reality in this one and the responses to the vaccines, the way the government was kind of burying its head, the puppetry of the bad guy Sangro. Yeah. Can you? Why did you choose this? Why did you guys choose the plague storyline specifically?
Well, that one was actually funny because there was oh wait, I don't. Actually, this might not be for public consumption. So let me try to think about that for a second. I have to come up with like a sort of truth on that one. So I it's really wild because there was another inspiration for this story, and it was wild because I was kind of thinking of like Mugabe and like all the old doddering dictators who, you know, people that you admired, or like if you're old enough, you admired for a minute, and then they started ruling, and then all of a sudden you're like, ugh. So it was only after after Brave started drawing it, because I thought about Mugabe. That's how I got Yvette Lisa Ndolovu in it, because she was a student of mine when I taught at Clarion West. So, and the short story that she wrote was absolutely brilliant and funny, and I was just like, "Ooh, I like her a lot." And then because Lion Man deals with Africa, and I've literally never been there, I thought like, yeah, I kind of want to have an African writer write that. And then she's actually Zimbabwean too, so like then it kind of worked perfectly because I was already thinking of her doddering old leader, you know. So she was gonna have fun with that. But it was literally, it wasn't until it started being drawn where I was like, oh, did we write about January 6th? Like, did that did that just happen? Like, I mean, because it makes sense that we
Mm-hmm.
would have, but it wasn't until then where I was like, oh, okay. I guess just roll with it. So
Yeah, natural progression of feels like something that would happen normally, maybe in our reality or not. I feel
well,
like that's sorry, go ahead.
no, people have been playing around with the whole idea of conspiracy theorists and vaccines forever. So it has happened everywhere um, throughout time, I'm sure. Well, since the times of vaccines, I'm sure. um,
Yeah,
uh, yeah. So it's not specific to anything. It was only then you realize, like, oh, yeah, that clearly we had January 6th on the mind, even though we were actually talking about something else.
yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned she's from Zimbabwe. I actually looked something up. His call Shumba Imambo. I'm probably butchering that. One of those words means lion. What does it mean in its entirety? I don't know if it was explained. Do you? I didn't know if I got it. I was like looking through it a few times. I was like, what is?
Oh my
What is?
goodness. We wrote that like 2 years ago. I don't remember, but um, the idea behind it was that every once in a while he could like get some kind of like super strength, right? So that was the chant that she came up with.
Cool. Nice.
But like I literally don't remember. I'm sorry.
No,
I should have. I
curious.
guess I should have done my own research, right?
I will find the smallest thing of like, ooh, what's that? Cool.
No, that's cool because I mean you do that like because we're pretty layered. So a lot of things that we do just like I as a writer, etc. is like pretty layered and I always have different meanings and stuff. It's just that you kind of forget what they are. Like my first novel, Sunshine Patriots, I came up with my own dialect. And I charted it all out because it was like the dialect was full of all these different influences. But now when I read it, I'm like, what the hell was I writing about? Like I don't recognize I don't understand the dialect that I wrote.
And it was so important at the time.
Well, yeah, but that was like 1998, right?
Right.
I was like, a couple of things have happened since then.
Right. A couple,
Yeah.
The version of Sangro and his puppeteering of the president, because of all the different versions, this and Bubba, I was wondering why you guys went with this direction instead of like a straight up version of like just a straight up in your face villain. Why put him in the shadows, which he obviously got ousted, but like in the beginning, he's just kind of like the little henchman, the little Elon guy behind the.
Well, as I said, Yvette's Zim, and I'm half Jamaican, and as I said, I'm a history buff and insanely political. So this is just how neo-colonial, neo-imperialism, whatever you want to call it. This is how it works, right? That's how it's always worked. They play both sides. So that's basically how he's representing like U.S. and European foreign policy, right? They're just like they're in the shadows. They're literally playing both sides against each other. So that's basically his character. Like we like to blame like evil villains, but nah, it's like the whole system operates pretty evilly,
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of represents that. Like having a big bad doesn't really appeal to me terribly much, creatively.
Yeah. Okay. The NDG Institute, which I kind of picked up, Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois. I had to look up the other. Is it Kwame
Nkrumah?
Yes. Why the name?
Well, yet again, this is like literally a third world kind of thing. She's like, he can't work. A live man can't work for the United Nations. I'm like, you are so damn right. So we thought, wouldn't it be kind of fun to like have him work for like this Pan African covert organization? So that's where that name kind of came in because you're just like, right, the NATO thing, because yet again, both sides against the middle, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that was basically it. And, all three of those guys are pretty important. And then I thought it would be kind of cool because, one's American, one's Jamaican. And one's from Ghana, right? So it's just sort of like, not only was it a Pan African institution, but like it represents three of the branches of Pan Africanism. Right.
I respect that. Yeah. I did enjoy the different versions each story had of Bubba, especially the ones that went like automaton,
Yeah.
wild, which I really actually liked that. I like the thing that I liked about the book the most, randomly, weirdly, was the Bubba versions, because I just liked how creative people got with the different iterations. So why did you guys choose your version of Bubba versus like what? I mean, I guess I don't know how much the process was of you guys knowing other people's versions of the stories, but like, why did you go with the soldier kind of helper?
Well, as the publisher and editor, I guess you can say I was being pretty bad because I didn't read John and David's stuff before I did this. Well, because you don't want to necessarily be informed by other people's stuff.
Right.
I mean, in all honesty, I love the original Bubba. Because I mean, just out of nowhere, he pulls like this M50, the 50 caliber Browning, and just starts shooting people. You're like, what the hell? Like now, I kind of want to write a story about that Bubba. Like that's crazy. But yeah, no. Basically, I knew. Well, yeah, as I said, John and I have been together for a long time, and we talk way too much. Like, yeah, we talk like once a week. It's yeah, but I talk to him more than I talk to my own family. It's
friends like that.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it. But so I knew the kind of things that he was going to do, and like for me, I just kind of like the whole idea of his being a pulpy kind of superhero character, and then since the original has him like being this brilliant guy in a loincloth. It was the 40s. You should have been there. Like I was just like, well, then I kind of like the whole idea of his just being kind of like this, secret agent superhero kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty much why we did it the way that we did.
I can sense your thoughts on the OG lineman. When you did read, I mean, the story itself is like pretty. It is thin, but like, what did you think? Like, it is hard reading some of that stuff in the 40s, and it's a product of its time. But I think it has like good bones. So I guess what were your initial thoughts when you read it, the original story?
I mean, I think that's pretty much summed it up, right? When you go back and you delve through the public domain, the whole jungle thing is just crazy. Like there are like a gazillion kings and queens of the jungle, and they're all white. So and for me, because I don't know, I guess I kind of get into heavy things even through genre. Like that's just, as I said, a pretty layered guy. Just having like this, well, even this story, which is simple, isn't right. So I kind of enjoyed the whole like what the whole all Negro comics is doing, and I like the fact that because even when I started being a public, when I was a kid, in the 80s, people telling me that I couldn't do what I am doing now, and then when I became a publisher in 2013, I heard that behind my back, they're like, oh, he won't even last 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that they did this, sort of like, what was that, the trolley line in, I think it was like Montgomery that Black folks started. Mm-hmm. Like just this whole like, oh, you can't do this, and he's like, fuck you, I'm doing it, which is very much the way I operate. So yeah, and just the fact that it was pulpy, just like, because even still, that kind of thing is still very, I don't want to say revolutionary, because it's definitely not that, but it's definitely just like the pioneer thing. Just like, I am going to go out and I am going to do a thing that everybody says that I can't do.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of interesting that he did it in that even though he was from the other side of the state, that he did it in Pittsburgh, which actually kind of makes a sort of sense because we had like 2 Negro League teams at the time.
Yeah.
Black Pittsburgh is like at that point was something that was quite kind of impressive for such a small place. So, yeah, I mean, I really dig that the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to actually, before I get into the publishing, I want to ask a couple more things actually about the.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We have all day.
The creative team process with Yvette and David. How did that work with the 3 of you? I know you gave her how does that work, the balance between 2 writers and an illustrator? I'm kind of curious about that. How you guys figure things out?
Well, John and I've been together forever, since 2013 basically is when we started doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
David Brame was originally in APB, which was I guess like 2015, and then he drew Bad Mothers, one of the comics that I wrote, and that was whatever, a 3-year process or whatever. But then Yvette is so it's sort of like a family affair, right? So since she was she's still in Massachusetts, I just drove up there. We took 2 days to write the thing out.
Nice.
And then, because Brame and I worked together for a while, and he's been part of the Rosarium family since about 2015 or so. Wow. That was like 10 years ago. My goodness. Yeah. Okay. You just kind of trust it, right?
Yeah.
And then, John worked on it, and Alexandria Batchelor, who was also in Box of Bones. So I think for me, business-wise in general is you never want to be the smartest person in your organization, and you never want to, you gotta your ego has to be strong enough that you don't need to be considered the best, right? So the whole thing is you work with people who are really good at what they do, and then you can just kind of trust them and do all the other things that you personally have to do, right? So highly competent people, and people who just kind of also sort of have that kind of, I don't want to say family, because I guess Vin Diesel has kind of wrecked that word. but yeah, it's sort of along those lines. It's just you have a little tribe or family or whatever. Everybody knows what they can do, and people are on the same wavelength, and then it just kind of works out.
And when it comes, I want to say this, you being a publisher and owning this is actually super inspiring, especially being Black owned.
Thanks.
How does that build? How do you have a good team, you build a team, and you literally have to be fuck that, I'm going to do it anyway. What are the obstacles that you have had to overcome to get to the place that you are now? I know there's a lot, but I have to imagine that it's been not the easiest to be an indie publisher.
Well, we do comics and science fiction, focus mainly on brown folks, and we publish people from all around the world, right? Mm. And we came out with Mothership first, which was a bit of a huge statement, because that was back when they said that we don't write that stuff. And, it ended up in the Smithsonian, blah, blah, blah. I'm not blah, blah, blah. I get like that doesn't matter, but, you can read about this stuff. So I think that, especially at that time, 2013, because we made such a big splash, because we had famous people in Mothership, I think people wanted to pretend that, a bunch of people wanted to pretend we were the only people doing it, which then made us a target for stuff. And while I don't really want to get into, because boy, can I, there are just a lot of things. I would just say that there have been many instances where I've experienced things that my white publishing friends have not. Mm-hmm. And where they were that's insane. I've never heard anything like that before. Because, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
So people, sometimes they're just people who put obstacles in your way because they can. And also I think like culture is actually much more important than people realize or give credit to. And I think that cultural narratives are very important. It's sort of like I tell people we're pro us, right? But kind of think of us, if you want to, is think of us as like an anti-diversity publisher, right? Like diversity says we're people of color, we're 93% of humanity, right? Like the world is brown.
Yeah.
And all of that is perpetuated through culture, right? Like it's just sort of like we keep pretending that there aren't like 8 billion of you and like 400 million of us. You know what I mean? Like we just keep and so when you're looking at somebody who, a lot of our stuff gets taught in universities, we're in the New York Times a few times and blah 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 and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's funny, I was literally just talking to a linguist last week about like her specialty is like blah 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 yada yada, like all the fillers and stuff like that. Like and now all of a sudden I'm saying blah 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 and I'm like I usually don't like. I guess
you talk to a linguist and now you're just picking up new things.
I just right. I'm like, hey, now I'm just gonna pick up things that I haven't said since I was a kid. But yeah, so. Yeah, it's just like for some people, it's like I told a white publisher is a friend of mine who does similarly what we do, and I was like, well, when you do it, it's diversity. When I do it, it's self-determination. So it just gets treated differently. Mm-hmm. And so you can sit up there and you can get this. I tell people it's like this weird thing where people are like, oh, you're great, or you're getting star reviews, and all your stuff is really great, and you don't exist also. I mean, it's only something like a minority can understand, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're like, you could just let us be and like not fight us, but it just is what it is, right?
The nature of our existence.
It's the nature of our existence, yes. Mm. I don't know if it's in the, it's not the nature of existence itself. It's definitely a product. No. It's definitely a product of the construct.
Yes, it is a pretend construct that we all unfortunately participate in. Yes,
a couple of rich white people 350 years ago said, "Hey, we need to stay rich," and we still live by that.
Yeah, it just morphs into something different every so
often.
Well,
it's really interesting. There's a Black science fiction writer, Canadian, Minister Faust, and he interviewed me once. And he's like, you realize we'd be living on Mars by now if they didn't spend all much time and energy and resources like trying to keep Black folks down. And you're like, yeah, you are totally right. You are totally right. Yep.
I have had these conversations before, like the way that capitalism has overextended itself to the point where it's now no longer innovative. It's just holding people back and weighing. So the point was free market breeds innovation. It feels like a similar concept. It's not.
I think that I'm anti-capitalist. It's just that you have to own the narrative. So that's literally why I'm a business person. But capitalism was always destructive. Like that's like literally. My joke is capitalism's first big idea was chattel slavery, and their second big idea was wiping out indigenous populations to make more room for chattel slavery. So it was never like a good idea, right? And I think you're right. Like there's like, because you see it in the tech thing, right? Like this AI is literally like, we don't have anything left. Like we have squandered so much and we have squashed so much opportunity that we can't buy up anything else now. So we're just going to just go back to just straight up theft. Mm-hmm. Right. But none of this is helping us as humans. Like it's not, right? It's not curing anything. It's like a friend of mine.
actively destroying a neighborhood or a city in, is it Tennessee? I think there's Grok is like poisoning some neighborhood in there's like too many there's like a super center or something that powers the Twitter AI
Right.
that is also poisoning a neighbor, like a black, predominantly black, of course, neighborhood in Tennessee. It's just like par for the course.
Yeah, that's just what capitalism is, right? Like that's just what it is, and they can't get past it. And a lot of it just has to do with they can't deal with the notions of equality, right?
Yeah.
So they would just rather destroy stuff, you know. A friend of mine once told me, she was like, Bill, we like eliminated want like ages ago. I was just like, oh my God, you're so right, right? And you're like, but it just keeps going because just the whole notions of equality just for some reason threatens people of all sorts, right?
Fair. Do you think that there is an inherent, some people will always inherently want to have power over others? I think that's largely what it is.
I mean, I've relatively recently been thinking about that because it's like, oh, power corrupts, absolute power, and I was like, nah, I think literally there are just people who are corrupt and then they strive for power, like because it's just when you look at like some of these things. I just remember having a conversation during the pandemic was like, yeah, Jeff Bezos could literally give every one of his employees $1 million and still be as rich as he was like 2 years ago. And be back to being as rich as he is in like, I don't know, less than a year. But instead he like fights unions. Yeah, that makes no sense. But and it's all over imaginary numbers. Like there isn't cash in and of it, money in and of itself is imaginary enough, but we don't even have enough cash. If one of these tech billionaires wanted to cash out, we're like, yeah, that money doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, you see, Bill, Amazon needs the money for the world's Ice Cube masterpiece that I don't know if you've seen it.
No, but all of a sudden I was thinking like, no, that was Ice Cube came out with his masterpiece in '91. I don't know.
Right. Nothing after that counts.
Not really. There's a couple songs, and let's not talk about like 2020.
Nope, nothing in the 20. Yeah,
yeah. Let's like all of the '90s rappers. Like,
what? I mean, I know what happened, but damn, like.
I think like because they're like, okay, like if Chuck D or like Zach De La Rocha of like Rage Against the Machine, if they sold out, then I would be like, but when you go back, like, most of those guys' music wasn't about shit, right?
That's true.
It wasn't about shit. So like, why wouldn't they be shit human beings? Like, we Black Trumpet, right? Like, it's like, and they are.
Yep, they sure are.
It's like those. I mean, it's like a lot of those black athletes get up there. I'm like, dude, you can put a ball in a hole. Don't act like you did something. Like you just need to work hard. Putting balls in holes, like, come on, man.
He's genetically gifted.
Right, man. I mean, you trained hard. I will never ever diss an athlete as far as like their training goes. But like, you sit up there telling us how to live our lives. You put a ball in the hole.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, I'm not building a Mount Rushmore for you, man. like, you need to like calm down with your critiques on blackness, right? You just need to calm down.
Right. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up with one last question for you.
I thought you had like all kinds of questions for me. I'm sorry.
No, we could talk more, but I think I want to wrap this up with one more question, just because I do have to head out. But what is after? Is there anything after Lion Man? Like, are you guys going to continue to do more stories in this domain, like in the public domain, pulling out? I saw the Phantom story, which was cute with the like exploitative vampires. Actually really like that a lot. Would love to see more of that, but yeah, is there plans for more in the public domain for you guys to do more versions of this book?
I would say do not be surprised if there is.
Cool.
Like if a Lion Man universe came about. Well, because I'm not a big fan of superheroes, like in general. Because I think they're all like crypto fascists, basically. Well, if you think about it.
With a Superman symbol behind me. That's so funny. You're funny.
Well, what does he do? What do? They take the law in their own hands and like preserve order. Like that's like literally the whole fascist line. Like that's like literally it.
Ooh,
Vigilantism, like all of it. Like it's all a part of a very, but as I said, as a history nerd, there's a lot of fun, especially since superheroes are considered so quintessentially American. Like there are like a lot of things that you can play with. Like I recently discovered like the Black scientists and mathematicians that worked on the Manhattan Project. So there was one sister, Carolyn, I can't remember, maybe Parker, I can't remember. But you know, she's like the first Black woman with a postgraduate degree in physics and stuff like that. And I was just like, whoa, here's something that we don't know about ourselves. Like obviously not a fan of the atom bomb.
Right.
Could have like not done that.
Right.
We had the option to not do that. But I just thought, oh wow, this is kind of like an interesting thing to play with. And in fact, when during our Back a Kid campaign, Robert Love, who I don't know if you know his work, he drew a version of him and Lion Man and a couple of other people that I retooled. So there's a hint right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Well, as I said, like there are things that you can play with.
Yeah.
You know, so you just kind of, you know, on top of my, you know, weightier things that we can just kind of mess around with that. You know, because having fun isn't like a bad thing.
No, it's like should be the priority, I think.
I have kids.
I have a kid too.
It's not. There's no priority. Like, what is fun? Like, I can't. It's like I thought I was enjoying myself, then y'all showed up. No, I was kidding.
I have a toddler. I understand that so deeply in my
yes. Now my idea of fun is a nap. Like, woohoo! I slept.